everyone, welcome to Arinda Talks Fantasy and Sci-Fi. I'm your host Arinda, and today we're going to talk about Final Fantasy with Shawn Weddle. Final Fantasy is a Japanese anthology science fantasy media franchise created by Hironobu Sakaguchi. The franchise centers on the series of fantasy and science fantasy role-playing video games. The first game in the series was released in 1987, with 15 numbered main entries having been released to date and an upcoming 16th installment announced in 2020. The franchise has since branched into other video game genres such as tactical role-playing, action role-playing, massively multiplayer online role-playing, racing, third-person shooter, fighting, and rhythm, as well as branching into another media including CGI films, anime, manga, and novels. Final Fantasy installments are generally standalone stories or role-playing games, each with different settings, plots, and main characters. But the franchise is linked by several recurring elements, including the game's mechanics and recurring characters' names. Each plot centers on the particular group of heroes who are battling a great evil, but also explores the characters' internal struggles and relationships. Characters' names are frequently derived from the history, language, pop culture, mythologies of cultures worldwide. The mechanics of each game involves similar battle systems and maps. The Final Fantasy video game series has been both critically and commercially successful, selling more than 159 million software units worldwide, making it one of the best-selling video games franchises of all time. The series is well known for its innovation, visuals, and music, such as the inclusion of full-motion videos, photorealistic characters models, and music by Nobuo Uematsu. It has popularized many features now common in role-playing games, also popularizing the genre and a whirlpool in markets outside Japan. So, we welcome Shawn Weddle once again. Hi, Shawn.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing much better today.
Oh, good. Good to hear. So, today we're talking a little bit of Final Fantasy. I must confess I'm not totally into Final Fantasy, but can you tell me in your own words and tell the listeners what Final Fantasy is?
Well, Final Fantasy's been out for a lot of years. Originally, it was a two-dimensional top-down role-playing game. You had very few options on characters to start out with and to play as, usually with a group of 4. Over the years, it has progressed and changed. More commonly for everybody is Final Fantasy XIV. It is an online MMO, and like a lot of MMOs, it has a lot of things. It is very story-driven. It's a wonderful game. The graphics are absolutely beautiful. The environments are amazing to sit there and just stand and watch if you want to. But the game itself is very much story-driven.
Okay, yeah, my fiance also have taken a look of Final Fantasy 14, so he showed me a little bit. Are they, because I know it's already the 14th version of it, is it the same characters and same storylines, or is it completely different every time?
So as each new game progressed, in the beginning, the story premise was very similar, but the actual characters and the storylines did evolve as each new progression came out. Final Fantasy XIV is the same way. The progression has taken on a life of its own. You create your own character, and that character becomes the main character in the story plot. You become the warrior of light, and you start moving through the progression of the story. Final Fantasy XIV has had a few expansions. When you start off in Realm Reborn, and then you move on from there. You got Heaven's Ward. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to remember. It's a lot of information. But you have Heaven's Ward. You've got God. What was the other ones? I have most of them. They're actually coming out with a new one for called Endwalkers.
Yeah, I heard about that.
But Final Fantasy XIV isn't actually the end all. There was a Final Fantasy 15. It was brought out on console for PS5 or PlayStation, PS4, PS5. And I believe there's another one getting ready to come out soon. I haven't seen or heard anything on it. I never did play Final Fantasy 15. But what I did like with Final Fantasy 14 is even though you create a character, you choose your job class and everything like that. One of the things that makes the game really viable and easily playable is one single tune, one single character can be all jobs, whether they're crafting and gathering or any of the combat jobs, whether it be healer, tank, DPS. You can literally have one character be everything. So you don't have to create multiple characters to do different things.
Okay. And do you see a lot of changes in, for example, the first couple, now I presume you will say the graphics, etc.?
So the graphics have definitely evolved. Square Enix is probably one of the few companies that I know of that really stays on top of evolving their graphics as the equipment changes, and they stay on top of a lot of the newer things. So you get a lot of really good detail in not only the character creation, but in the landscapes that you play in and the creatures that you're going up against. It really is a very beautiful game to sit there and play. A lot of the spell effects are absolutely intense. Um, there are spells out there that cause your screen to go completely white for a second. But again, they've also got a lot of options where you can turn a lot of those effects down so it's not as blinding. I know there's a healer spell out there that encompasses for the whole group, but it is so bright that I have to turn those effects down a little bit.
Okay. So, since when have you been playing? And do you do this on a console or just PC?
For me, I'm primarily a PC gamer. I actually only own one console, and that's a Nintendo Switch. But I play on PC. I've only been playing Final Fantasy for a little while, not very long. One of my buddies from my WoW community actually got me into playing it. And so, I kind of dropped it for a little while when World of Warcraft had its new expansion and kind of went back to that. But then with everything kind of taking a backseat and with the way that World of Warcraft's been going, I've been playing Final Fantasy more and more lately and really enjoying it.
Okay, that's good to hear. So, is there anything you like to talk about specifically in Final Fantasy? So, the listeners can imagine how it is to play Final Fantasy, or what do you like the most of it?
Well, for people that are just starting out, it's actually really good right now. You can actually play the game for free all the way up to level 60, which will get you through the main game, Realm Reborn, and will also get you through Heaven's Ward, which is the first of the expansions. That'll get you through to level 60. The storyline will absolutely blow you away. Um, the main thing I can say for people is just be prepared for a lot of cutscenes, a lot of cinematics that are in the game because, like I said earlier, this game is very story driven.
I think it's also something as a player you need to like that, or is this just of every gamer that will say, okay, I can cut the cinemas scenes because I also can play it like that, and I understand what the storyline will be.
With Final Fantasy, not so much. You really want to get, if you want to get into the story, if you want to really understand what's going on, you want to watch the cinematics. If you don't watch the cinematics, there's going to be pieces that you're going to be missing. Not everything from the cinematics is going to be portrayed specifically in the game, so you might miss something while you're going through and leveling.
Tell me about the characters you're playing with. Is it a just an RPG game, or is it a multi game that you have a team, or
So it's an RPG game. So for Final Fantasy 14, you do control just one character. But again, you can group up with team members. You can group up with other people, and uh, there are also free companies and grand companies. Grand company is kind of like a guild that you'll join in the game itself, where you'll be interacting with the NPCs and you'll do stuff with them. There's three major grand companies, and then you have your free company, which is player driven, and you'll have a lot of different folks from different classes or different grand companies, and everybody can come together and do stuff together. There are, uh, for the most part, in the dungeons, you'll have four-man groups. Then once you start getting into the trials for the primals or getting into the main story quests, which are some of the larger quests to do, you'll have eight folks with you, and then you can get into the raids, which, if I'm not mistaken, I've heard have had as many as 24 people. You'll have three groups of eight.
okay? And can you? Uh, we talked about World of Warcraft. Can you do this as in Final Fantasy 2? Like you having a group and you will go on the quest that is linked to the storyline, for example?
There's going to be parts that you can do that, and there's going to be parts where you have to do it on your own. That's one of the things that I actually do like about the story is you're not restricted to having to have a group or not having a group. The duty finder in Final Fantasy, very similar to the looking for group function in World of Warcraft, is actually really good at putting you together with people around your level or around your job's level that can help you go through that, or putting groups together to help you get through things a little smoother.
Okay. Do you have any favorite character in Final Fantasy?
As far as races are concerned, I'm part and part to the Ari. They are a dragonborn race.
Mm.
And as far as classes are concerned, when I started playing as a summoner. You summon creatures to fight with you and stuff like that. I kind of fell away from that. My first max level character was actually a samurai. Uh, I picked that up when I started playing again, and I maxed that character all the way out. And right now, I'm playing as a dancer, and I'm really enjoying this one because it's a class that can be both in melee and at range.
Okay. Reminds me a little bit of Mortal Kombat. Sorry for that, but okay. Um. So, do you fight against bad people, or is it more like characters that are, and you just come along with them and I don't want to say be friends, but there was something dangerous about them? Or is it more like the story will be evolving and you linked in with the storyline?
So you actually run in line with the story, and there's going to be a lot of plot twists and turns. You'll be fighting against one person in one storyline, and then as the story progresses, they could become your ally.
Hmm.
It's really very in depth and very inclusive. There are certain things that are going to happen that are just you're going to have that wow factor. And for me, I love a story driven game, and with this one there is a lot of wow factor. You're going to be watching a cutscene here and it's just going to blow you away. You're going to be like, oh my god, I did not know this was going to happen. Or it's, oh my, I saw this coming. I saw this coming from the last scene, and it's happening now. So it's a lot of fun to try and figure out, okay, who's the next one to throw a wrench in the works? Because some of them you'll expect, a lot of them you will not.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Is there also, how can I say this? Do you have to go on quests, or is there in storyline that you say, okay, this family has a family secret and it's coming out, and now they have to go on a mission and to um, defend the family and also the family honor, etc.
Yes and no. So you have your main storyline, your main story quests, which are your MSQs. That's what's going to move you from one expansion into the other. But then you also have, for each of the different jobs that you take, you have quest lines for those as well. So, say you have a samurai. Well, as you level your samurai, you'll have not only the main story quests that you haven't completed so far, but you'll also have job specific quest lines that you want to complete as well because they'll help you to understand the abilities that you're playing with.
Is there any limiting of the tunes you got, or is it more like, okay, you have X characters and you can play with them and can upgrade them to the max level, and they will help you along with the storyline?
So I do play for a subscription, and I believe I have a total of 8 characters that I can create. However, the creation of alternate characters is completely unnecessary. And the reason I say that is because every single job can be played by one character that you create.
Mm.
You do not need to create new characters for any reason. And there's a lot of folks that play the game that they don't change what character they're on. There is cash shop items, so you can buy something called a Fantasia, which will allow you to change your race and how your character looks if you decide to do that. They do have a lot of shop items that you can get, whether they be for glamour and transmogrification or for any other things that you want. There's mounts that you can purchase, just like you can in a lot of other RPGs. They have multi-person mounts. I know, me personally, I have up to a 4-person mount, but they have some that are up to 8.
Is there any age description for this game?
If I'm not mistaken, I believe this particular game is definitely rated for anybody that's teenagers and above. There's a lot of different things that do happen in the game. Nothing that would go quite into the mature, but you definitely want to be able to understand what's happening.
So, where do I need to look at if I'm starting playing Final Fantasy for the first time?
Well, like I said, if you start for the first time, I definitely recommend getting on with the free trial. You know, play a character to 60, see if you like it. If you don't like that particular job, pick a different job. You can actually get all of the jobs up to 60 before you actually have to pay for anything to really progress into the end game content.
Can you explain a little bit about the different jobs there are?
That's where it gets quite extensive. There are a lot of different jobs. You have your warriors and gladiators, you have paladins, you have dancers, you've got samurai, you've got arcanists, which can become scholars and summoners. So there are some of the job classes that you have that can actually split off. You've got your white mage, you've got red mages, you've got black mages, blue mages. There's literally a laundry list of them that you can look at and see what you want to play. And like I said, one of the best things I like about it is the fact that if you're new to the game and you want to play, you get to go through quite a bit of it to see how much you're going to enjoy that class before deciding, okay, well, I'm not too fond of this one, let me try this one, or let me try this one. There are some classes that actually do have things that you can do outside of battle. For instance, the archer class, which will turn into the bard class. Well, bards can actually play music, so you can actually go, and we see it happen all the time. You can go into a main city hub, sit right there at the main teleport stone that you have there, and you can play music. You can play actual songs with the right keystrokes and everything like that while you're just standing there in the main city.
Oh, that's cool.
So there is a number of things that you can do. Final Fantasy actually has one of the most extensive emote systems I've ever seen. Buddy of mine and I were talking about this. You can literally have an entire conversation without typing a single word.
Okay.
You can just use nothing but emotes.
Okay. Sounds a little bit weird in my ears, but okay, that's probably just me. Is there anything you don't like in Final Fantasy?
The housing system. It is the bane of our existence. So right now I'm the leader of our little group's free company. My buddy actually has a small house of his own, but we've been going in search for a free company house. So you can have your own personal house, but then there's also free company houses in which everybody that's in your free company can go there and they can actually rent a room of their own. So you're not, you've got apartment buildings that you can go to, you've got inns that you can rent rooms at. But the real kicker is with the free company house, and the problem is there's a lot of stuff for the free companies that are kind of walled off behind having a house or not. It opens up being able to do a lot more stuff for the free company. And so right now, that's been the bane of our existence, is trying to find one. We've got a few of us that will go out and camp placards on a regular basis whenever a house comes up available for sale. And right now, we're just waiting to get lucky enough to catch one.
Okay. Have you any idea how what the age is in how people play Final Fantasy?
You might have to clarify just a little bit. What do you mean by that?
I mean, in which age difference there is. For example, people play from 15 till 75 or whatever.
You'll find actually that there's quite a diverse age group that plays. You've got the younger generation that plays just as well as some of us that are in the older generations. Me personally, I'm getting up there close to 40 years old. So, and I'm still playing games like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy and thoroughly enjoying them. I really do enjoy playing with a diverse group of people.
What is how can you describe the music in it? Is it really fantasy, or is there?
So the music in the game itself is actually quite diverse. Each area that you go into will have its own soundtrack. Each of the
Mm,
dungeons has its own soundtracks. Each of the primals has its own soundtracks. And even with like the housing and stuff like that, you can get those soundtracks as a drop from dungeons or from bosses and stuff like that, and put them into like a music player in your house, and your house will play that music. The other thing that's really nice is with the mount system, some of the mounts will actually play the music from whatever boss that it dropped from. Case in point, early in the game, there's like 6 primals that you can fight. And each of those 6 primals, once you unlock the hardest difficulty for them, which is extreme, you can go in and you can farm those bosses until you get the mount from them. And the mount that you ride will start playing the music of the boss in which it dropped from.
okay.
So that'll be the music that you will hear while you're mounted, and then once you dismount, you'll hear the local area music. And like I said, each area has its own type of music, and it's very progressive in the fact that it is attuned to where you're located and what type of story follows through in that area.
If you and how much is Final Fantasy fantasy? If you rate it between 1 and 10, if you say 1 is low fantasy and 10 is high fantasy, why would you rate in it?
So personally, I would probably put this at about an 8. And the reason I would say an 8 is there's a lot of fantasy elements to it, but there's also some technological elements to it as well.
Mm,
One of the main forces that you'll go up against is the Empire, and the Empire has a lot of technological, so you have what's called magitech. And so you'll see machines, you'll see rideable robots and stuff like that that you'll actually be going up against.
that's a
But you also have your golems, you have your other creatures, your fairies and stuff like that. So really, this game will run the gambit.
so how do I have to see those, for example, those magical tech?
Yeah, so the Magitech. So one of the things is it's actually a rideable armor. It looks like It looks like a large two-legged bird to some extent that you'll ride. The cockpit's on top. It's got two very large legs and it's got a giant cannon.
Okay, sounds interesting.
You know, you have your there are some airships in the game. You have some that are fashioned similar to like a zeppelin, and you have some that are fashioned very much like a flying boat. So they have a lot of different variations to what it is that you'll see.
Okay. And what is the weirdest creature you have come across?
That's a little more difficult to describe, only in the fact that I still haven't seen everything. And the reason I say that is because each of the creatures is somewhat specific to the area in which they're located in, and they all have kind of a unique appeal to them. I haven't seen anything truly weird, but there's definitely a lot of interesting things to see.
Well, I have a last question for you. Is there any quote you like from Final Fantasy that one of the characters use or whatever?
Nothing specific that a character uses. Personally, I really enjoy the way that each of the characters kind of builds themselves and has their own personality. And it's really easy to see how each one of them evolves through the game. And you really do start to get attached to some of these characters.
So I can imagine that it's also a little bit addicted because you are fond of the characters.
Absolutely. You're going to run across characters that are just the story that they have, their backstory, or any kind of information that you get on them. You want to know more. You want to see more of what's going on and find out exactly what happens to them. Final Fantasy, like I said, is one of those games that's very story driven, and going through the main story quest, you get a lot of the information. But there is one thing with this game that I've yet to run out of, and that is quests to do, because there are thousands upon thousands of side quests that you can run and do. So there's literally no shortage of story or information that you can get from this game. There's no shortage of lore from anywhere in this game that you cannot find.
Okay, I think that's one way a good thing, because you can enjoy one game and love the storyline, but also love playing it in the way of being that character.
The biggest thing that draws a lot of people is the fact of not just the customization, but the fact that you can see the story from so many different perspectives.
Do you have ever seen people who are cosplaying Final Fantasy?
I'd imagine the cosplay community for Final Fantasy is just as large, if not larger, than the World of Warcraft community.
Well, Shawn, thank you for this lovely conversation. And it was nice to talk to you again.
It has been my pleasure.
I hope to talk to you another time, because I really like a conversation about, mainly about video games, but okay.
Absolutely. I actually look forward to these conversations because it's a lot of fun for me, and I really do enjoy our back and forth. It is always enlightening to see from somebody who's played versus somebody who hasn't.
Yeah, and I also think for people who heard about it or not, but not very into it, it's you can give an insight to them. I remember that when we did the World of Warcraft episode, it was really nice, and it was also giving me so much insight of it. And yeah, of one thing, listeners, Shawn has his own YouTube channel where he's streaming on YouTube or Twitch.
It's not YouTube, it's Twitch. I'm working on starting up on YouTube, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. I do play on. I do stream on Twitch. I haven't recently because I've been so busy with work. But I do plan on getting back into starting that up again.
Well, I think that's a lovely idea because if people really want to or are interested in the game where we're talking about and they just like to see it, you can show them on your Twitch stream.
Absolutely.
So I think that is a good one to keep in mind, and also for the listeners, of course, because yes, we're talking about fantasy, we're talking about video games, but this is also yeah, I think because there are so much video games out there, and if you're still looking like me and searching for games you're gonna like, I think it's a very nice idea. I think that I do those episodes so they can have a more insight of the game, and yeah, like I said, if you are playing online and you stream it and people can watch it, it's then they know exactly what they can expect, I guess.
This is very true. With World of Warcraft, a lot of what you'll see from me is going to be end game. With Final Fantasy, however, there's going to be a lot of leveling and a lot of doing things with a group of my friends.
Okay, yeah, but I think it's also just like I said. Sometimes I enjoy watching it and just see what people do, and that is also one of the things I really enjoy is just the friendships you make.
Yeah, a lot of the people that I play with, I've actually been playing with for many, many years. One of my closest friends, I've been playing. Him and I've actually played multiple games together. We've been running together for what, 6, almost 7 years now.
Yeah, it's a totally different community. For example, like cosplay or whatever. But yeah, I do enjoy it. So, Shawn, thank you once again for joining, and I will see you another time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
If you like this podcast, you can like and subscribe on all the platforms. You can also follow and comment on Podbean, Spotify, and Google Podcast, on the social media, the Facebook group, the Discord server, and YouTube channel of Orenda Talks Fantasy and Sci-Fi, and on Twitter at OTFASP. Let me know what you think of this episode. In the next episode, we will talk about the Star Trek expectations of Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Star Trek Picard Season 2, Star Trek Prodigy, and of course, Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I'm Orenda, and thank you for listening to Orenda Talks Fantasy and Sci-Fi. I'll see you next time.